At number 10, we have ULTRON 59. Coming from the Last Avengers storyline, this version of ULTRON is probably one of the scariest looking versions of ULTRON on the list. With a set of physical features that more so resemble those of a human, this alternate version of ULTRON just looks like he's straight out of a nightmare to me. And he means business. And he gets it done too. On Earth 9511 is where his story takes place, and he very nearly gets the upper hand on the Avengers. He actually kills Jesse Wingfoot and then sends forth a horde of Ultrons to fight the heroes for him. As you can imagine, this poses a huge threat to the Avengers, but luckily, Vision is finally able to take out this Ultron by merging with him. It's a pretty harrowing battle, and ULTRON 59 is taken out of the fight. For good. Until a new writer decides that isn't the case in the future. But for now, we can all sleep at night knowing that human-looking ULTRON 59 is not around anymore, and he can't hurt you.
Number 9. ULTRON Extreme. Okay, so ULTRON Extreme actually only made a few appearances, I believe, in Avengers Next, which takes place in the MC2 universe, the alternate Earth of 982. The same home reality as Spider-Girl / now Spider-Woman, aka Mayday Parker, Spider-Man and MJ's daughter. Despite having only a few appearances though, I just love the intimidating design for ULTRON Extreme, who looks like a super beefy version of ULTRON to me, and a super spiky version too. ULTRON if he were like a brick wall. His powers are believed to be on a similar level to that of his main continuity, but his intimidating appearance inspired me to put him as one of the lower but still scary points on our list. While ULTRON Extreme was seemingly defeated in a single issue, he was pretty powerful and was only seemingly permitted to be defeated as part of a larger plot. So they just got lucky with that one, I think.
Ultimate ULTRON. This version of ULTRON is just plain terrifying in how he looks, but also in what he's done during his run. And just simply the fact that Ultimate ULTRON or ULTRON 6 is a version of the villain that is starting to gather valuable information on how to take down the Avengers once and for all. So he does just that. Well, not once and for all, obviously, but he is the first Ultron to successfully take them down. The way he does it is by taking over Vision and turning his skeleton into adamantium. This allows him to take on a nearly indestructible form and gain a huge advantage in battle. He's also unique in that he can actually shapeshift by manipulating his molecules, which is pretty impressive considering this is unheard of in the more modern iterations of this villain. But even though he's an older version of Ultron, he still strikes me as a little scarier than some of the others. The art just looks more menacing back then, in some ways.
Number 7. Infamous Iron Man. After the events of Secret Wars and reality being brought back to normal, Victor Von Doom was unsatisfied with his life, and finding that he couldn't find satisfaction serving himself, even as God Emperor, he decided to switch his morality and try and serve and help others. He took on a bit of a mentor in Tony Stark, whom he had always respected, and when Tony Stark was put into a coma, Doom decided to take his place as the infamous Iron Man, which was a great reason to give us Dr. Doom in a highly advanced suit of Iron Man's Model Prime Mark 51 armor. While also being the coolest looking Iron Man ever, the armor was retrofitted into Doom's style and was used alongside his magical abilities. So, Iron Man with Doom's magic is basically what we have here. To make things even better, Doom's intellect and sorcery were near their peaks during this period in time, so he is truly an incredibly powerful hero, even if he does kinda go back to his old ways eventually. Number 6. Sorcerer Supreme. On Earth 938, the setting of the 1989 What If issue 52, when Doom failed to rescue his mother's soul from Mephisto, he sought out the Ancient One to learn and train in the mystic arts and be able to finally save her. Now, during the time of his training, he becomes extremely powerful, reaching a level of mystical magical power that made him worthy of being Sorcerer Supreme, while also still being a technological genius and master schemer. He, alongside the Ancient One, freed his mother from Mephisto at the cost of the Ancient One's life. When Mordo tried to take out Doom, Doom implanted a microscopic device inside Mordo's head that would detonate if Mordo ever crossed him again. When Stephen Strange came to seek help from the Ancient One for his damaged hands, Doom just cut them off and replaced them with robotic ones. and he eventually banished the Dread Dormammu from Earth after he invaded. That last feat did fatally wound the new Sorcerer Supreme though, but using his Doombots, he kidnapped Dr. Stephen Strange and used his own personality and memory to overwrite Strange's, turning Strange into a copy of Doom, ensuring his legacy would live on and he could continue to be the Sorcerer Supreme in a new body for basically ever. Number 5. Dr. Juggernaut. Heroes Reborn! Welcome to a world where Tony Stark never built an Iron Man armor, where Thor is a hard-drinking atheist who absolutely despises hammers, where Wakanda is nothing but a myth, and where Captain America was never found in the ice because there were no Avengers to find him. In their place, this world has always been protected by Earth's mightiest heroes, the Squadron Supreme of America. Just like the Justice League, but Marvel. This team does battle with crazy foes, one of which being Dr. Juggernaut. Now if you haven't guessed by now, yes, this is a world where Victor Von Doom took possession of the Gem of Sidorak. And again, yes, this is as completely awesome as you might think it is. His story is one of revenge. He used to be the king of Latveria before that pesky squadron jumped in and turned the government into a democracy with fair elections. Ugh. Doom came in last, and he was eventually banished to the negative zone, but came back with sights set on not just his kingdom, but the whole world. With the powers of Dr. Doom and the Juggernaut, this guy was capable of going up against frickin' Hyperion. He led the Masters of Doom, putting him in charge of crazy powerful villains like Algog, which is Mangog with the powers of Odin, which is just a Black Skull, who is Red Skull plus Venom, and Silver Witch, which is self-explanatory. Oh, and Thanos. Number 4. Doom the Living Planet. The legends go that Dr. Doom of Earth TRN-157, the world of Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, sensing that the end was near, decided to transfer his consciousness into the one thing big enough to contain his absolutely massive ego: a planet. This Doom, the living planet, could travel through space at the speed of light and manipulate matter on a cosmic scale. He also had the means to launch massive planet-wide invasions with an army of Doom bug bots. Now, to be completely open and honest with you, he doesn't last very long in this story. But that's only because he is shot by Wolverine with a weapon that harnesses the entire power of the Phoenix Force and was made for the sole purpose of destroying planets. But the panel where he was floating over New York and bellowing, "Doom hungers." So cool.
Number 3. Allfather Ultron. Ultron just loves a good fusion dance, my friends, especially if it results in horrifying consequences, and in this case, it does. Here, Ultron ends up merged with Odin, taking the Odin Force instead of choosing to merge with Thor. So this is a being who is not only super smart and technologically gifted, but now is also magically gifted as well. Oh boy, that's great. Allfather Ultron hails from the Avengers Ultron Forever story, where in the future Ultimate Ultron appears and ends up defeating the Avengers and then enslaving all of humanity with his own drone army. He then goes on to imprison all of the Asgardians as well with the help of mischief god Loki, and chooses to take the power of Odin for himself, bonding with the Odin Force and therefore becoming, well, the Allfather.
At number 2 is MCU Ultron. This version of Ultron is the most popular, but that doesn't make him any less terrifying than these other versions of himself. In this storyline, Ultron is created by Iron Man, and one of the creepiest things that happens as a result is that Ultron takes on a personality similar to Stark's. But what's even scarier about this one is that he was actually created by Tony Stark to bring peace to the world. And what causes him to go rogue and try and instead do the opposite is that his coding malfunctions and convinces him that humanity is the only thing in his way from reaching this goal. And since the Avengers were in between him and his goal of killing all living things, they too are in his way. Somehow he's able to then create a robot army in a Hydra lab and challenges the Avengers as one of the toughest villains they've ever had to face. I know we're all very familiar with the MCU Ultron, but something about the fact that his coding starts as a directive to save the planet and then shifts into a directive to destroy the planet and the universe just gives me chills, especially since it's due to the notion that we are just so bad that we're the problem. Really makes you think.
Number 1. Infinity Ultron. Possibly one of the scariest iterations of Ultron I've ever seen, comes to us from the cinematic universe, appearing in Marvel's What If, the Disney Plus streaming service animated show. In the episode What If Ultron Won, we learned what would happen if Ultron was not defeated and instead became even more powerful, resulting in the antagonist being a threat to not just his own universe, where most heroes have already been defeated, but the entire multiverse. This version of Ultron not only has the Infinity Stones, but also discovers how to traverse the multiverse, allowing him to threaten the destruction of other worlds. Fortunately, he is, at least temporarily, I don't know if he's gonna stay defeated by the Guardians of the Multiverse, the Watcher's own multiversal team of heroes. But even then, that's a pretty rough fight that happens.
Coming in at number 10, 1602. In this alternate Earth, or alternate timeline, Magneto is known as Enrique, or the Grand Inquisitor. He was born Jewish in a Venice ghetto, but was taken in by a Christian priest and baptized. The Christians later refused to let him be returned to his Jewish family, and being unable to be reunited with this family left him psychologically scarred, which I guess led him directly to become the leader of the Spanish Inquisition somehow? He was ordered to execute the witch breed, or mutants to us in the modern age, but he hid those who could pass off as human. Enrique's only known followers are his children Petros and sister Wanda, who are Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, in case you didn't make the connection. And his spy in the Vatican is the Toad. Enrique uses his position to further his needs and curry favor with the influential figures, including King James of Scotland. While Enrique is attempting to have Angel killed, the Witchbreed is rescued by Iceman and Cyclops. If you guys haven't read 1602, definitely do. It's written by frickin' Neil Gaiman. Like, come on. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you drop a like. It really helps us out as a channel and we would really appreciate it. It's on to number 9 with Age of Apocalypse Magneto. In the reality of Age of Apocalypse, Magneto leads this world's X-Men after the death of his friend Charles Xavier, at the hands of Xavier's son David, who traveled back in time hoping to kill Magneto. Magneto and the X-Men fight against the forces of this world's Apocalypse, who, without the interference of Xavier, was able to take over North America. Magneto's team is composed not only of the X-Men, but also includes mutants like Sabretooth and other not so good guys. In this timeline, Magneto is married to the mutant Rogue, and together they have a son they named Charles. Magneto and this Charles are later personally captured by Apocalypse himself, though they are rescued by Rogue and the other X-Men, including Nate Gray, who raid Apocalypse's citadel in a desperate final attempt to save all of reality from Macron crystallization. The end fight between Apocalypse and Magneto in this story is so awesome, and Magneto like literally tears the celestial technology out of him. It's just super cool. Number 8, Magneta. On Earth 982, the Age of Heroes happened about 15 years earlier than on Earth 616, meaning most of the events, history, and character history associated with the heroes of Earth 616 also happened 15 years before. As such, a lot of the superheroes of the past, the ones you and I know, have either grown up, grown old, or retired, with new heroes in their place. For Magneto, he doesn't actually show up. Instead, we have a young woman who goes by the name Magneta, and who seems to have all the same powers as Magneto, even dressing similar to him as she considers him her predecessor. She started off as a hero and always spouted the heroic ideologies that Magneto followed, condemning his more negative aspects. But that didn't really seem to matter though, as she eventually went bad anyways and founded the Sisterhood of Mutants as a strike team for mutants against human oppression. Her efforts to recruit a Midtown high school student named Nucleus brought her into conflict with Spider-Girl and the X-People.
Number 7, Humanoid Ultron. At least humanoid in terms of his facial expressions and like his appearance. This Ultron is not actually one that exists in the comics or in the MCU, but is a hypothetical design that was made during the process of developing Ultron's look for the MCU film Age of Ultron. The creepy, very human-like appearance of this face and the expressions is what really messes with me looking at this. I personally think this would have been a much more disturbing design for Ultron on the screen, making him appear even more humanoid than he already did. But then again, they probably didn't do that for the reason of, you know, like not spooking kids too much that were watching the movie. Of course, then again, we also just got Multiverse of Madness, which definitely did not hold too much back when it came to disturbing scenes and characters. So yeah, I guess it's a while later, so it's a different time. all the people that saw Age of Ultron are older now, so they can handle it? I don't know. These designs for Ultron, by the way, come from Phil Saunders, who is a concept artist for Age of Ultron, and also has been one for many other MCU films and projects, including WandaVision.
At number 6, I've put Hank Pym Ultron. In the comics, Ultron is created by none other than entomologist, biochemist, roboticist, engineer, physicist, and scientific adventurer Dr. Henry Hank Pym. But despite all his impressive titles and accomplishments, this scientist has some pretty questionable morals and a pretty messed up past to deal with. And as it works in the real world too, Ultron somehow inherits some of these issues, himself being something of a son to Pym. One of these issues is only characterized as a pretty deeply rooted father complex, where he constantly seems to be searching for Dr. Pym's approval. So instead of trying to please him, which seemed impossible, he just fuses with his creator instead. And in doing so, this super genius scientist gets a huge boost of intellect and, of course, power. And further, he is then able to turn back and forth to and from Dr. Pym's human form to avoid detection in crucial situations, and use his Ant-Man powers to get really small. So this version of Ultron just had so much dynamic in his abilities, which makes him all that much scarier knowing how evil he is. Something about his ability to blend in as a human is the scariest part of the whole thing, because sometimes you wouldn't even know you're speaking to one of the most devious, intelligent, and powerful beings in the universe.
Number 5. Ultron Galactus. Well, this sounds like it should be one of the scariest points on this list. The bottom line is that Ultron Galactus is actually kind of a hero in this story. In a distant future, Galactus is dead and an even greater villain threatens the universe known as the Unnameable. The Unnameable devours worlds without even a second thought, not bothering to even send words to planets of their arrival. If not stopped, it seems as though the entire universe will be destroyed. Hoping to save the universe, Silver Surfer recruits the Shi'ar and gathers the remains of his former master Galactus, along with some old parts of the villain once known as Ultron, planning on resurrecting Galactus so that the two can defeat the Unnameable together and kind of using parts of Ultron to do so. Unfortunately, even with the fused Ultron Galactus, who is under Silver Surfer's control, it's not enough power. They are forced to recruit other cosmic characters, but even then, victory seems uncertain. This story comes to us from a page of Marvel Universe 2001 Millennial Visions. I love these little short story anthologies. So much fun.
Ultron Phalanx. This version of Ultron comes from the Annihilation Conquest storyline, and he's got himself a full-on army, which gives him a spot on this list without a doubt. After the Avengers think they've finally taken out Ultron, it becomes very clear very soon that he isn't actually dead. Instead, his consciousness travels to another place in the universe called the Babel Spire. In this world, he somehow manages to take over all of its inhabitants, known as the Phalanx. These techno-organic aliens come together under Ultron's reign and form a pretty powerful army. With said army, Ultron invades the Kree Dominion and takes over a bunch of their territory, among other tyrannous acts. It's obviously a teachable lesson to the Avengers that no matter how sure you are that you've killed Ultron, you have to monitor him and his consciousness and keep tabs on his activities, because this villain's ambitions just never seem to cease, for anyone or anything.
Number 3. Ultimate Universe. Everything in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, or Earth 1610, is more extreme for better or for worse. While some fans hate this version of Magneto for being a straight up villain and not the anti-hero the character has become, it is almost impossible to deny that he does show just what Magneto is totally capable of. This version of Magneto is significantly darker and more cynical than the mainstream version, regarding all humans with utter and unwavering disdain and likening them to insects. On several occasions, he has attempted to carry out extreme genocidal plans for the human population using the noticeably larger Brotherhood of Mutants he is in control of. This Magneto has displayed enough power to defeat the Ultimates, including Thor, a literal god, twice. And he was even successfully able to reverse the magnetic poles of the Earth, resulting in the Ultimatum event that was supposed to end the Ultimate Universe, but didn't for some reason, I don't know. Number 2, Brother Mutant. If you are a comic book fan, which I hope you are considering you've made it this far in the video, I highly encourage you to check out the Exiles team if you haven't already. They are a reality hopping team of heroes and sometimes villains that go around trying to fix fractured realities. One such reality that multiple teams of specifically alternate versions of Wolverine have been trying to save would be Earth 127. This reality was one of the many that was accidentally accidentally fractured by the explorations of the Time Breakers, and has a few gender-swapped characters including Magneto and his children. On this world, the Scarlet Warlock attempted to transfer the adamantium skeleton of 127's Wolverine into his mother, Magneto. But the Warlock's hex powers inadvertently merged himself, his mother Magneto, his sister Quicksilver, and the mutant Mesmero with Wolverine, creating an entirely new and extremely powerful entity known as Brother Mutant, who sought to take over the world. And in at number 1 is Magneto from House of M. When the forces of Professor X, the Avengers, and the X-Men arrived to defeat or defend the Scarlet Witch, due to her unstable mind and powers, and the influence of her brother, she caused a white flash to go off and used her powers to change reality. Mutants were no longer the minority, free to use their powers, living as proud mutants. All the mutant heroes were now living their perfect lives. Most of the societal changes in this alternate timeline were directly thanks to the strong and successful leadership of the House of Magnus, meaning Magneto and his children. Magneto took the fight to the USA with his fellow mutants. He brought down the SHIELD helicarrier and fought a final battle against the Sentinels in Central Park, defeating them. The President of the United States was captured, and Magneto and Genosha were now the world's premier superpower, with large parts of the world under his control as king. King Eric Magnus was the most powerful individual in the world, if we don't consider the Scarlet Witch, who literally created it all. Instead of mutant oppression, humans were now being oppressed and hunted by alternate versions of Sentinels. Heroes like Luke Cage, Hawkeye, and more tried to rise up and defend the defenseless as a group called the Human Resistance Movement. Number 10, Ultimate Doctor Doom. Victor Van Dam of the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610 was caught in the same accident that gave the Fantastic Four their abilities. For Victor, his flesh was changed into an organic metal, his legs became goat-like, and his hands gained claws. With his metal body came the power to alter the density and nature of his skin, forming porcupine-like quills that he could even throw at enemies. This Doctor Doom, just like his Prime Earth counterpart, was an intellectual genius and also a powerful sorcerer, showing the ability to summon creatures like the Lovecraftian Civilpogua, which I'm not even going to try and fix my pronunciation of. He also seemed capable of performing Atlantean magic and apparently grew in his magical proficiency, since he claimed to be the Sorcerer Supreme of his Earth when facing Jean Grey in All New X-Men Volume 1, number 36 from 2015. Number 9. House of M. In the warped reality of the House of M, Doctor Doom kind of gets everything he wants, minus his mother, and minus world domination, and minus a lot actually. Okay, he doesn't really get anything he wants completely, but he does become really cool, sort of. He allies with Magneto when the human-mutant war erupts, and when the mutants come out on top, Doom took over the kingdom of New Latveria, marrying his childhood sweetheart Valeria. He found a way to combine magic with technology and cosmic rays to empower himself with a liquid metal body that is virtually indestructible and can be stretched and transformed into weapons. He also upgraded his wife with powers to control mystical shadow constructs, and their adopted son with powers similar to the Human Torch. Teaming up with this reality's Ben Grimm, called just It, they form the Fearsome Four, a strike force used by Magneto to keep other superhumans in line. Number 8. Doom 2099. The Victor Von Doom of the Dark 2099 stories is surprisingly actually the 616 Doom, but transported to the mind of a younger Latvian man. He maintains all of his intellect and inventive genius, and he also gets some upgrades. His body is infused with nanotechnology, which increases his reflexes and strength considerably. But on top of that, Doom wore a sophisticated nuclear-powered adamantium battlesuit, which granted him superhuman strength, contained jets for flight, housed a personal force field, and discharged concussive force blasts. He could also electrify his armor's surface, which is kinda cool. The armor contained a 4-hour air supply and could be sealed for travel into outer space or underwater. His upgraded armor added abilities that allow him to phase, which the original Doom armor could not. The only downside to this variation of Doom is that he is not as adept in the mystical arts, due in part to memory loss. But he is a genius in physics, robotics, cybernetics, genetics, weapons technology, biochemistry, and time travel. And one last little tidbit, he became president of America, so Who's that? Number 7, Max Eisenhardt of Earth 8013. In this reality where Charles Xavier had died in his first encounter with Lucifer, Magneto formed his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants using his children Pietro and Wanda alongside Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, and Beast, who curiously wielded gauntlets that made him some very Wolverine-like claws for some reason, I don't know. These 5 youths were the original X-Men on Earth 616, which makes it really interesting to see them in this strange Magneto-led bad guy team. Together they actually ended up successfully conquering the world, but then again they were unable to prevent Galactus from in turn destroying that world, so... But hey, you win some, you lose some, you know? I don't know. Number 6. What if Magneto ruled all mutants? In this what if story from 1996, Magneto leads mutant kind as they float above Earth in space on a sanctuary Magneto established called Avalon. Magneto had decided to let his mutants rule themselves so that he wouldn't be a dictator to them. Unfortunately, a large group of mutants had divided themselves into 2 warring factions known as the Isolationists, who wanted to move Avalon to another star system, and the Annihilates, who wanted to go the easier route of destroying humanity and just taking the Earth for themselves. Magneto had to stop the 2 factions from fighting when they nearly destroyed Avalon. Later, after the birth of the first child on Avalon, Magneto actually manipulated events in order to unite the 2 warring factions together, but on the outside he acted as though he was done trying to get them to work together. What If number 85 from 1996 is certainly an interesting story, and you should definitely check it out. Number 5, Age of X. Max Eisenhardt from Earth 11326 proved to be a master strategist and a radical leader in a fight against the human race. He was a key figure in organizing resistance movements, protests, and he was the leader of both the Brotherhood and the Acolytes. He also supplied the Mutant Liberation Front with intel and logistical support. Now, similar to his Ultimate Universe counterpart, he once attempted to reverse the Earth's magnetic poles, and he would have succeeded if it hadn't been for Tony Stark and Reed Richards, who created technology that thwarted his plans and prevented any further attempts. One of his biggest feats though would be the creation of Fortress X. Magneto, using his powers, literally stole several skyscrapers from New York City and put them together to create a mutant safe haven. It was both a show of force and a mutant rallying cry. Now, after the incursions, this version of Magneto would actually go on to play a key role in the Battle World Red Skull Volume 2 storyline. Definitely a good read there, check it out. Number 4, Heroes Reborn. Heroes Reborn Magneto and the Mutant Force Volume 1 on Earth TRN 852 gives us a version of Magneto who set up yet another mutant sanctuary in the form of Island M, and founded and led a team known as the Mutant Force, consisting of Frenzy, Jubilee, Rogue, Sabra, Mr. 1, and Mr. 2, including himself. During a mutant protest against mutant registration, a fight broke out with the Squadron Supreme of America, who are like a Marvel's Comics Justice League, if that makes sense. During the fight, Power Princess, who was basically Wonder Woman, killed Professor X and paralyzed Magneto after hitting him in the spine. Magneto, affected by the passing of Xavier, and who kind of took on his whole wheelchair thing, vowed to aid mutants against human oppression. This Magneto variation actually gets his body taken over by Cassandra Nova in a crazy twist of events, and honestly, the whole story is a wild ride from start to finish. Number 3, Otto Werner von Strange. In Devil's Reign Superior 4, we see one of the most powerful versions of Doctor Doom. And the funny thing is, he is combined with one of the villains you wouldn't think to be all that powerful. This Doctor Doom is combined with Dr. Octopus. So that's an interesting combo, but he's also fused together with Doctor Strange. There are a lot of doctors here. Yes. This Doom from Earth 8968 has become Sorcerer Supreme, and he is able to subdue Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Hulk, and regular versions of Doc Ock. He is easily able to best 3 of the strongest Marvel heroes at the same time. He has total command of the forces of magic and better control over his mechanical arms than the original Otto does. He can manipulate the multiverse, communicating and casting spells over different realities, and can even pull the other Ottos to his own Earth with a simple gesture. By his own volition, he has liquefied Shumagorath, had Dormammu grovel at his feet, and burned Null to ashes. These are all cosmic level threats that many times got close to destroying Earth 616 and its universe. Number 2. End of Time Doom. Earth 14412 is home to a Dr. Doom who is more than just a Sorcerer Supreme. He is the Fist of Iron, the Star Brand Supreme, the Master of Mystic Vengeance. He is the End of Time Doom. He has powered himself up with the Star Brand, Iron Fist, the Eye of Agamotto and Cloak of Levitation, and a Spirit of Vengeance. In this reality, King Loki had destroyed all of humanity, with Doom being one of the few survivors. King Thor and his 3 daughters, the goddesses of thunder, restored life to the earth, and Doom came to conquer it. Naturally. He completely stomped the 3 granddaughters of old King Thor, who themselves were powerful enough to destroy Omnipotent's city. And he was only stopped when old King Thor, who wielded the Odin Force, or more specifically the Thor Force, was also empowered by the Phoenix Force. Also, this Doom looked incredibly cool, but he was still not as powerful as the number 1 spot. Number 1. God Emperor Doom. During the events of the incursions that would lead to the most recent Secret Wars event, Victor Von Doom, with the help of Molecule Man, gains the powers of all the Beyonders, a race of beings from beyond the multiverse responsible for basically everything there is, and powerful enough to destroy Marvel's various cosmic entities, so that he could forge the remnants of the multiverse together into Battleworld and rule it as God Emperor Doom. While empowered by Molecule Man, God Emperor Doom had the powers of reality warping, matter manipulation, energy manipulation, plus all the super enhancements and his former powers. But just listing his powers isn't going to suffice. It's his feats that truly prove his power. Other than forming Battleworld or Earth 15513, God Emperor Doom has turned Johnny Storm into the son of Battleworld. He has created a new and improved Eye of Agamotto for Doctor Strange, he's completely disintegrated Doctor Strange, ripped Thanos' spine from his body and turned him to ash, de-lifed the Phoenix Force Cyclops, defeated Black Panther, who was wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, created the hammers of his Thor core, and even gave the Thors their power. God Emperor Doom was the 3rd most powerful being in the entire Marvel multiverse, only being surpassed by Molecule Man and the One Above All.